Welcome to the Podkey summary of Build Live production tools for Apple Immersive Video from WWDC 2026. Apple's Immersive Live Video Stack is starting to look less like a flashy demo and more like a real broadcast system with its own rules, formats, and workflow. The big idea is simple enough. If you want people wearing a Vision Pro to feel like they're actually there, you need way more picture, way more audio detail, and a much smarter way to move all that media around in real time. Underneath that, Apple is stitching together ProRes, high-order spatial audio, SMPTE transport standards, and a metadata system that lets every frame carry instructions along with the image. The first thing to understand is scale. Apple Immersive Live is working with video resolution that's roughly 32 times larger than a normal 2D broadcast. And that sounds absurd until you remember the viewer isn't watching a rectangle across the room. They're effectively placed inside the scene, so the picture has to hold up across a much wider field of view if it's going to match anything close to human visual acuity. On top of that, the frame rate is double compared with conventional broadcasts, which matters because motion in immersive video gets uncomfortable fast if it feels stuttery or synthetic. That smoother motion is a big part of what sells the sense of presence. Your brain notices when movement feels right, even if you can't quite explain why. Audio gets pushed just as hard. Apple's spatial audio format, or ASAF, can carry 64 or more independent channels, which is a very different world from stereo or even a standard 5.1 surround mix. That extra capacity lets creators build sound as a full 3D environment, using high-order ambisonics and object-based audio, so elements can actually exist around you instead of just being assigned to speakers. And because those sound objects can move with the viewer's head, the audio keeps reinforcing the illusion that you're inside the event rather than just watching a very expensive screen. This is one of those places where the tech spec really does translate into a human feeling. Better spatial audio means the room, the crowd, the performer, the action, all have a believable place. A really interesting decision here is the codec. Traditional live production often leans on uncompressed video pipelines, but Apple Immersive Live uses ProRes encoded frames instead. That's basically a practical compromise between pristine visual quality and bandwidth that doesn't become completely unhinged. And because Apple Silicon is already heavily optimized for ProRes encode and decode, the choice fits the hardware ecosystem in a very direct way. So ProRes stops being just a post-production favorite and turns into a live production building block, which is a pretty big shift. There's also a cleaner way of handling the left eye and right eye pictures. Instead of cramming them together in side-by-side frame packing, Apple's immersive workflow uses SMPTE 211022 to transport the two views as separate essences inside a single IP stream. That means you still preserve the 2-eye structure needed for stereoscopic viewing, but the routing is simpler and the network overhead is lower. Maybe most important for the people actually building these systems, it avoids the mess of treating immersive video like two separate live feeds that constantly need to stay in lockstep. Then there's metadata, which sounds dry right up until you realize how much of immersive production depends on it. Using SMPTE 211041, each video frame can carry a JSON payload in real time. That payload can describe lens calibration, creative events, motion data, and other frame-specific information that downstream tools need in order to behave correctly. So instead of treating metadata as some side spreadsheet of sorrow that gets lost halfway through the pipeline, it travels alongside the video and audio as part of the live flow. That lets graphic systems, spatial audio tools, and camera-aware processing react dynamically without stopping the show. For developers, the key software piece is the Immersive Media Support Framework, or IMS, introduced in Vision OS 26. IMS provides APIs for reading and writing the extended metadata that Apple Immersive Video needs, including lens calibration objects and projection kind flags. It also includes preview capabilities, which makes it a foundation for building custom editing tools, replay systems, graphics packages, or other production software around this format. That matters because formats don't become real ecosystems until people can actually make tools for them. One of the cleaner advantages of this setup is what happens when you want to record or replay the feed. Since the live signal is already ProRes, recording it to disk is basically just wrapping those frames in a QuickTime MOV container. There's no extra encode-decode cycle in the middle, which means no additional quality loss and a much simpler handoff into storage. And on playback, those same ProRes frames can be streamed back over 2110. So instant replay or post-production edits don't quietly degrade the image every time the material moves through another step. That's the kind of workflow decision that engineers love and viewers never notice, which usually means it's the right one. The bigger picture is that Apple isn't inventing every piece from scratch here. It's combining 3 existing media components into one unified immersive live format: ProRes for video, ASAF PCM audio for the spatial sound field, and per-frame JSON metadata for all the extra instructions. Paired with SMPTE 21110 transport, that creates a common language that cameras, switchers, encoders, recorders, and post-production tools are all expected to support. And that interoperability piece is huge, because immersive production only becomes practical when equipment from different parts of the chain can exchange media without custom glue holding everything together. In other words, this is Apple trying to make immersive live production feel less like an experiment and more like a standard workflow. So the headline is that immersive video isn't just bigger pictures in a headset. It's a whole media system built around higher resolution, smoother motion, truly spatial audio, frame-level metadata, and a workflow that tries to stay elegant under some pretty ridiculous technical demands. And honestly, if the plumbing works, that's when the magic has a chance. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.